Is James Harden about to be your neighbor? Is this really going to happen? I mean, this is incredible. Harden's got leverage like he's never had before. The Rockets have a brand new GM and a head coach. If they don't think that he wants to be there, they can rebuild on their own merits, go in a completely different direction, unlike Daryl Morey, and then send Harden to a place he wants to go. Obviously, he is in search of that elusive first championship.
Yeah, and he should be. Here's another guy, much like a CP3. You want to see him go to a place that they have a real opportunity to win a championship or at least play in a championship again. And so it makes all the sense in the world. You know, it's weird on the surface of things, especially as athletes or people look at athletes and say, wow, he turned down 2 years, $103 million. That's
hard to compute.
It is. It's just like, how could you wrap your mind around it? But what's the most important thing? The most important thing is trying to get to a championship. I got all the money in the bank. I can't spend it all, right? I mean, that's the way he looks at it. And he's young enough to get back to a third or even I don't know if this is a third or a fourth contract extension at some point in time.
It's the only thing missing because he's one of the greatest scorers of his generation. He has shown he could fill it up. He can score in any which way, but that chip's the only thing that's missing.
If I made $350 million or whatever the numbers are, I'm just, on and off the court if I'm James Harden, what's another $100 million? I'd pay $100 million to get to my championship ring. That's why these owners out here in professional sports spend so much money trying to have that conversation in the room when they go to West Palm Beach to their little meetings and boardrooms, and they want to be able to talk about, I got a ring. That's the thing that hurt a lot of owners when they're in these meetings. All their little buddies walking around, Chris, and they could, hey, how you doing, so-and-so, and how you doing? Yeah, it was great to have that party the other night, and I can't have that conversation. That conversation is real. James Harden wants to have that conversation. He can't, when he's on those trips with his friends that have won championships, he got to sit quiet in the corner.
He can't be in that conversation.
Can't be in that conversation.
It's a whole different ball game. But when it comes to James Harden, I'm not necessarily sure that he's a fit in a lot of other places. So I wonder about the leverage that the Rockets would have when they try to move him if they do decide to go in that direction. If you're Houston, I mean, you've already started to kind of tear it down. I mean, you moved on from Mike D'Antoni. You parted ways with Daryl Morey, so it almost feels like you've started the process. Now it's just a matter of, okay, can we offload Russell Westbrook, P.J. Tucker, and then what can we bring back in return from James Harden in order to jumpstart this rebuild? Because if James Harden lets it be known that he doesn't want to be in Houston anymore, you have no choice as an organization.
What did I say yesterday? With professional athletes tell an organization, I don't want to deal with you, those organizations will find a way to move you because they can't have that in the locker room. They can't have it. And it's not that James Harden's a bad guy.
Especially with a new coach.
It's not that he's a bad guy. It's just that I can't have a guy that doesn't want to be here not buying in 100% to what I'm trying to do. And it would be unfair to Silas to do that to him. So, yeah, you go ahead and you move him. You saw what happened in San Antonio on Kawhi. Kawhi didn't want to be in San Antonio. So they said, okay, we're going to ship you off to Toronto. And how did that work out, right?
Yeah,
that's what happens.
Think about this. Silas, for those that aren't aware, Stephen Silas, 19-year NBA assistant, finally getting his first crack as an NBA head coach, the son of Paul Silas. You get that crack. You think you're going to have these two big superstars. You might not have either of them when the season starts December 22nd. So it's an interesting dichotomy from what he thought he was walking into to what he might have now.
But did he really think that, though? You know what I'm saying? Like, did he really think when they sat down and they hired him that he was going to have Westbrook and Harden? And I could ask Woj that when we get Woj on, but think about it. If I'm a coach that's taken over a job and I know that they failed at the system that was in place before, I'm going to run something close but not quite the same. Chances are these two dudes aren't going to deal with me. You know that. Like, you honestly know that. He's not oblivious to the situation when he took the job.
No doubt, but according to Jay Will, when he was talking about this, and Jay's going to join us a little bit later this morning, Silas, yes, indeed. Jay was saying that Silas was really known for his communication and his rapport with big superstar players. He had been in Dallas. He had been in a lot of places that had star players, and even though he wasn't the head guy, now he's moved the 18 inches over to be the head guy.
Different.
He's had the relationships. You're right, it's 18 inches, but it's a world of difference. Let me ask you this. Rarely does anybody go to a team, Chris, for an assistant coach, but it is notable because you mentioned Mike D'Antoni is out of Houston, but guess what? Mike D'Antoni's an assistant coach with the Brooklyn Nets. Obviously, he and Harden did have a very good relationship. So take me inside that. I mean, if you're a player that likes to fill it up and has the usage rate of Harden, you'd love to play for a guy like D'Antoni, who's an offensive specialist. Is there any way you think maybe that could be leaning him and saying, you know what, I'd love to play with Kevin Durant, be reunited with him, play with Kyrie, play with Steve Nash or for Steve Nash. But Mike D'Antoni, the guy that may have taken my career to the next level, is right there in Brooklyn.
See, I think it's less about James Harden's relationship with Mike D'Antoni and more about Harden's relationship with Kevin Durant and probably more importantly, Kyrie Irving. Because if James Harden comes to Brooklyn, James Harden is going to be the primary ball handler for the Brooklyn Nets, and Kyrie's going to have to be off the ball. Is Kyrie going to be willing to resign himself to that kind of role? I mean, is he going to be willing to do that similar to what he had to do in Cleveland when LeBron came back? That's the question I don't know. Is that personal relationship strong enough to make that dynamic work? I think that's the biggest question when it comes to whether or not the deal makes sense for the Brooklyn Nets.
I think the relationship is strong enough, I think, because you have Kevin Durant, you have Mike D'Antoni there, you have a veteran in Steve Nash, Jacques Vaughn is there as an assistant, and Kyrie can play off the ball, can play on the ball. It gives them options. Now, clearly, you got basically three dominant players in terms of offensive performance, all different in their own way, right? But that's lethal. I think that's lethal for the East. And if they grab James Harden, nothing less. I know prior to this I said that they, showing up in the Eastern Conference Final would be good, but nothing less than getting to the championship? Nothing less.
Oh, yeah. If they get James,
bust.
Yeah, Key, if they get James Harden, the only team in the East that's going to stop the Nets from getting to the NBA Finals is the Nets.
Yeah, it's the Nets.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.